You are about to journey against the current of contemporary thought and beyond the troubled waters of daily news to the very source of our extraordinary culture. You are going upstream with Cashel and Edge.
Well, it's good to be able to do a show with a Hollywood veteran like yourself, Mr. Roy Edge, co-star of Upstream with Cashel and Edge, right? Because the Oscars are coming up on March 10th.
Oh, boy, I'm all at Twitter.
In fact, we may be past it when you're watching it. If you're not watching it, we'll air.
I have
initially.
no idea when the Oscars are.
But you're Mr. Hollywood, March 10th.
Right. I don't know when the Golden Globes or the Emmys or the Oscars or any of that stuff.
Now, did you ever go to an award show when you were in Los Angeles?
No.
In your Hollywood days?
No.
You were never nominated?
Not that I knew of.
Not even for like any silly kind of funny awards, you know?
No. Just the adult film things that I did.
Right. We won't talk about that. I have a cousin, actually kind of a distant cousin. He's a generation younger than I am. His father was a good friend of mine. His father was an acquaintance of mine. His father was totally nuts. In fact, we called him Crazy Eddie, and I talk about in my book, Untenable, the true story of white ethnic flight from America's cities.
Mm-hmm.
But his son has since moved to Hollywood, Beverly Hills, and what he does is, and it's an amazing life he's been able to carve out for himself. And you may know about these people. I don't know, there's a word for them. He's like a seat filler, right?
Okay.
So let's say, for instance, you're at the Oscars and you go up and you get an award. You don't come back to your seat, right? You're gone. So they need someone to fill your seat. So Eddie comes, in with his tux, wears the tux, looks good. And then his job is to take that seat. So he gets free tickets to all these events. And he's met all of these people. And he posts pictures of himself online with all the major stars.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of cool. But, I mean, in a sense, his participation in the whole award business is as superficial as, no more superficial than that of the people who are getting the awards. This year has a special, and this is, I want to talk a little bit about trophies, awards, winning things, and the way that's done today, and what kind of emphasis we put on it, and what kind of energy we put into it, with an explanation of why this year's Oscars will be different from other years.
Well, we talk about, we're upstream, so
Right.
We're talking about culture and how it trickles down into politics.
Right.
The politicians think they're at the Oscars. They really do.
What do they call that? Hollywood for ugly people? Washington? Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm. So this really relates,
Yeah.
because that stuff will trickle down into the political sphere.
Well, in this case, I think this is like the trickling that goes on when you flush a toilet. It keeps going around and around. And in the southern hemisphere, it goes the other way. You know that. What do they call it? The Coriolanus factor? Not a Coriolanus. Coriolis factor or something. Anyhow, this year, unlike previous years, there are DEI requirements to receive an Oscar, right?
Oh, I like that. So you got to be vaxxed and you got to have DEI.
Right. And it's as complex, the rules, and as easily outmaneuvered as are the regulations for doing business, say, in the city of San Francisco, which has driven people out of San Francisco. So there's ways around it. There's, if your cast is like, if you're making a remake of Color Purple, it's pretty easy, right? You can have 100, cast is 90% or whatever. And if not cast, then you can have behind the scenes people doing X amount of work, et cetera. But what's interesting this year is the winner this year, easily the best picture this year, best picture in probably a decade. I just rewatched it on TV last week. Oppenheimer has no black people in it at all, right? Has none. So I was reading about how they get around the requirements, and they have to be Oscar nominated because not only was it a qualitative movie, It was a critical success. It was also a commercial success. So you cannot deny it. It's glory. So they have like, you're reading the requirements. They have like an Asian costume lady. And, I mean, it gets down to that. It gets that silly. And they're going to make exceptions for Oppenheimer regardless, right? But
why don't they just do a disclaimer like they do with the smoking and say
right.
gratuitous white people?
Well, there's no gratuitous white people, but there should be a warning. There are no gratuitous black people in this
Right.
movie. We're not making Oppenheimer like it was Hamilton, right? We're not.
No, warning: no racially gratuitous inclusions.
Right. So, from a lot of people, that would be a turnoff because okay, why can't Oppenheimer be black? Why can't we make him Irish? Make it Oppenheimer,
Mm-hmm.
But Oppenheimer, actually, the movie is a brilliant movie, and it's filled with Jews. I mean, all the guys who built the atom bomb, not all, but very close to all of them, were Jewish, including Oppenheimer, including...
How are they ever going to find any Jews in the entertainment business, though?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, the Jews have had an odd attitude about portraying themselves in movies. They've been very discreet about that, yes, historically.
Well, I know in Hogan's Heroes they love portraying Nazis, so...
Although the guy who plays, was it Colonel Klink?
Werner Klemperer?
Isn't he Jewish?
Yeah. So is John, the Boehner, the Schultz. I know nothing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they were all Jewish.
Yeah.
LeBeau, he was Jewish.
Right.
He just died about 5 years ago. I used to see him when I'd go back to
LA. The guy who played was it named Conrad Cleat or something? The guy who played the Major Strasser in Casablanca, right?
Uh-huh.
The ultimate Nazi. He was Jewish.
Okay.
Right?
Well, see, they're great at that.
I mean, they invented Hollywood. They've done wonderful things. I mean, you got to give them credit for it too. But Jews don't count in the diversity sweepstakes, right?
Oh, yeah. I guess they're kind of like white Hispanics or something.
Right. They're just too white to count. So they have to. So their merit. I mean, actually, the director and writer of Oppenheimer is Christopher Nolan, who I presume is Irish descent or something, British guy.
Sounds like it.
So he doesn't count. But so the fact that you would have Jews in the cast, and you had Jews cast as Jews, some of them, although an Irishman is cast as the lead, Oppenheimer, which in a more sensitive culture would be considered a great insult, right? So if, let's say, Oppenheimer was in reality black, and you had him cast by an Irish person playing it, it would be a great insult. And Steven Spielberg ran into that when he did West Side Story, the remake. He decided he wanted an all Hispanic cast, but then the Puerto Rican said, your lead is half Venezuelan and half Polish. That's not Puerto Rican, right? So there's no satisfying those requirements. But that's the world we live in today. And
that even bled over into the voiceover world.
How did that? Yeah.
They'd have breakdowns,
right,
where they describe. Well, they didn't used to describe what the person looked like.
Right, right.
But then they started saying, and it was in its infancy. The DEI was in its infancy, so they were still making all these clumsy mistakes. Like they'd say, educated African American. And, of course, the black guys are reading that going, educated African American? This is bullshit, man. I'd be like, yeah, that pissed me off, too. But they were always doing that, and they'd be scrambling at the agency. Okay, this is a Hispanic. They want a Hispanic. We don't have enough to get audition. Loy, come here.
Yeah.
Read this.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'd slate Loy Edhe. And then I'd read it.
It's good for you. Well, that has seeped into, and it's not just Hollywood, and it's not just DEI. There has been a movement afoot in America for, at least a half century now, to water down the whole awards process, to make it as meaningless as it could possibly be. so that no one gets their feelings hurt and everyone wins. We've heard about this for a while. I mean, we're not breaking news here. But I first ran into it when I was working with the Kansas City School District. It's about 30 years ago. And they wanted me to judge a writing contest at a school. So they had like 30 kids in this class. And up until this year, they had, you have a writing contest, you get one gold ribbon, you get one blue ribbon, and you get 3 red ribbons, right?
Okay.
25 kids go home empty-handed. And the new version, you get 10 gold ribbons, 10 blue ribbons, and 10 red ribbons, right? So I was talking to the organizers. I said, do you understand what you've just done? And they said, what have we done? I said, in the past, if you were not in the top 5, you were just some other kid not in the top 5, right? If you get a red ribbon, it says idiot on it. It says lower third in it, you know. You are condemned to this netherworld, this fifth circle of hell where you live with all the other retards, you know. And they said, oh, God, we hadn't thought. Yeah, how could you not have thought of that?
Of course they haven't thought of it.
But we live in a world where people don't think about much of anything.
No, they don't have enough empathy to think how that'd make a kid feel.
So what's the best award you ever won?
Best award I ever won? Dang. I'd say the London International Award because it was for a voiceover project. I got to go over to London and get it.
Is that right?
So that was fun.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, this guy in L.A. that I did some projects with named Brent Hahn, really good guy.
Yeah.
We did the spot, and it was one of those where I did some fake auctioneering.
Uh-huh.
That's one of my little tricks because I was kind of a utility player, and I had all these little...
Can you do a sample for us here?
Let's see. Well, I can't remember exactly what I was saying in that commercial, but it was just a little patois like,
right.
Hey, got a board, got a board, I got a bit, who's going to be the Bible, I got a bit about a bill, I got to see a bill, who's going to be this? You know,
right.
It's not real auctioneering,
right?
But it's
Katzenjammer auctioneering.
Yeah, but somebody liked it.
Yeah.
And so I got the best artiste performance of that year in the London International Awards, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
And it was a big fancy deal.
Right. Well, that's great. And so you went to London, they pay for it and everything? No.
Brent paid for it.
Oh, okay.
Because he got most of the credit on the production.
Okay.
But I got the individual performance award.
Well, you know, I haven't won many awards.
I got 2 of those, actually.
I haven't won many awards lately, but the advertising community in Kansas City has a big award show every year, right?
They still do?
I don't know. I mean, when I was in it.
Back in the old days, we were at those all the time.
The
yeah.
Omnis, they called them.
Omnis.
And they give you nice little cubes, you know, if you won. And when you won, you're always just shocked at the things that you won for and disappointed at the things you didn't win for. But one year when just before I was leaving my agency, I was feuding with my boss, and we were putting in entries. And I put in an entry for the video I made selling my own house, right? And my boss didn't want it. He said, this is below par. You can't put our company name on this. I said, let me just put it in. It's not going to hurt anyone. So what I had done was I was moving. I had a house in Midtown Kansas City in a kind of not a sketchy neighborhood, but just not a great neighborhood. But I lived on a semi-main street. It was 59th Street. And I had my house on the market for 6 weeks. I didn't even get a looker. I didn't get someone to look. So one Sunday, I said to my wife, I said, Joan, I'm going to embarrass you here, but I'm in advertising. I got to do something, right? I can't just sit here, hope someone shows up with a for sale by owner sign.
And this was a rental house you had?
No, I owned the house.
I mean, you rented it out to people.
No, I lived in the house.
Oh, I thought you lived in your house where you are now.
No, I've been
forever.
there quite a while, but not forever. So I walked up and down 59th Street. I said, it's a semi-major street. I could get away with this. Talked to the neighbor. Said, do you mind if I put a yard sign in, And I put in a string of yards, like Burma Shave signs. House for sale at price that's fair. with hardwood floor and central air. Kitchen's nice, appliances stay, even the microwave if you call today. And then I had the house, the number, to call. And then this was before I had a video camera. So what I did was I called the TV station. And I said, there's this guy on my block that's put up these really incredible yard signs. So, and they said, who is it? I said, well, it's me. If you come, I'll give you an exclusive, all right? So they came, did a feature on it, right? And I kept the video of the TV. I guess they must have had home video at the time, but I kept the video of the TV thing. And so that day, I had 6 people stop and look, right?
Uh-huh.
And then after the thing aired, I got 6 more people to call. I sold it within 2 days at my price, right? So I entered it in the sales and promotion division of for the Omnis against my boss's better judgment. And so I'm sitting there, and I realized we made it into the program. So there's like 30 entries that make it into the finals. And when I get to the show, I look at the other sales promotions, like Hallmark and Sprint, and we're competing against $1 million promotions.
Blue Cross, Blue Shield,
right.
The usual suspects.
So we're sitting there at the table, and we go through the bronzes, and they don't call my name. And then we go through the silvers, and they don't call my name. And I just stood up. I said, I won. They said, how would you say that? I said, if I didn't get a bronze, I'm winning this thing. I didn't get a silver. I'm going to win. And then sure enough, I won, right? And there was mixed feelings at the table because there was my boss didn't want me to win. But it was like, yes, I won that. That was fun. That was like probably my best win, in recent memory, I did get a letter for JV basketball, but that doesn't really quite stand up against the...
You too? I got a baseball letter. Oh, you said basketball.
Basketball, yeah.
Wow.
Now, so we don't get a chance to win many things anymore. And I think and especially to win it in a thing where the competition is fair, where you have a shot.
The real competition thing is almost over.
Yeah.
That doesn't, it's déclassé to do that.
Right, because now every victory is tainted.
It's cheapened by some kind of advantage that you had or
Right.
some kind of harm you caused someone else. Zero-sum thinkers have taken over
Right.
the universe.
Right. I have one other advertising story. This is for the video division of the advertising awards, right? And so we get there, and
Is this an art director's or an ad club?
It was.
Because they used to have 2 sets of awards. You remember?
This was another set of awards.
They had the Art Directors Club awards.
This may have been for that, but it was video oriented at that time. And I was working with my friends at Video Post, and we had a table, and I went, and so I get there, and it's overproduced. These are all video guys who want to show off their high tech technology stuff, and you see all these flashing lights and music and all this stuff. And this year we present you the final solution.
Right. The final solution.
The final solution. I'm thinking, these people are such idiots.
Yeah.
They have no idea what they're saying here, right? They have no idea that the final solution, and metaphorically refers specifically to Hitler's plan to exterminate the Jews. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting all clapping, reporting. I said, is this a world you want to win a prize in? You want these people to be your judges, So it's strange, but politically it's gotten very bad, as you know, in terms of winning awards.
Mm-hmm.
I had this discussion the other day, just last week, in fact, I'm been asked to do a screenplay for the true life story of a black entrepreneur. And I said to them, you don't want my name on the screenplay. Because these are people with serious ambitions. And they said, why? And even the entrepreneur, who's about 90, he didn't quite get it. I said, they'll Google me. As soon as they Google me, you're toast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're cooked. You probably won't get money for it. And if you get money for it, you're certainly not going to get any awards for it. You know, that's for sure. And it's, oh, no, that can't be.
It's the only people on our side would throw themselves under the bus like that
right.
to preserve the other people's.
Thank you for recognizing my self-sacrifice there.
Yeah. I
So
mean, you're right. They would have been blown out of the water as soon as somebody figured out who you were.
Yeah. And this happened also when I was, I did a series of historical projects for our local PBS station. And they would say, oh, why don't you enter in this word or that word? I said, they're going to see my name in the era of Google. All they have to do is see my name. Then they will. They'll look it up or they'll hear about it. And they'll see, oh, Jack, he wrote Deconstructing Obama. Ain't happening. It is remarkable how that's pretty much taken over.
And they've gone real radically stupid lately.
Yeah.
I used to listen to NPR a lot.
Yeah.
I supported the local station.
So did I.
Quite a bit. I did a lot of big fundraisers and things. And I mean,
I used to take phone calls for KCPT, the PBS station.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I produced about half a dozen documentaries.
I was on both KCUR and KCPT fundraisers, and you know, the first art crawl through the Crossroads District was a KCUR fundraiser that I came up with working with Robert Barrientos and some other people. He said we needed something to do. I was on a bus going across that bridge. Crossroads District didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
But there were a smattering of art studios. And I thought, well, let's get to have a Friday evening deal we'll get the trolleys.
Right.
And we'll just have parties and have wine and things. It was the dead of winter. We got thousands of people. And everybody's like, there's something going on here. And we did a couple of them.
Did you win any awards for this, by the way?
Hugely successful. But no awards. But I did do a lot of stuff for KCUR. And now it's completely unlistenable.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's odd is because when I think back about that, the first years I was in town, I know we're talking, I was voting for Reagan at the time. It wasn't like I was always out in the open about my politics. But I had to listen to KCUR during the day, the PBS NPR station. I'd work with the PBS station. I used to orchestrate the fundraisers for the Unicorn Theater, which was an ongoing theatrical. Now I can't even go.
Yeah.
I get snickered if I show up there.
Right.
I haven't changed, right? I'm not the one who's changed.
Right.
I'm not the one who I just saw
It's
this.
changed a lot.
Yeah.
They both, and their content is just it's so low.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's written by angry high school students.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the national stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it was written by
ridiculous.
Yeah. Like the intro to theater classes at Penn Valley Community College, you know, LGBT division. Mm-hmm. And virtually all the plays have some LGBT theme. I had a play produced by the Unicorn, right? Now I don't even think of submitting it. It just wouldn't be worth it. And they don't know they've done this.
No.
They think that we have somehow strayed, but they've been right down the middle where they've always been. I just saw a statistic the other day that here's some interesting statistics. First of all, liberals on Facebook are 3 times more likely to unfriend someone over politics than conservatives. And that just goes to reason. Then I saw this fascinating poll out of Rasmussen, and it was a serious poll. And what they did is they did a statistical, they did a survey, online survey, a very sophisticated online survey of people they qualified as the elite. To be in the elite, you had 3 qualifications. One is there was a household income of more than $150,000. The other was that at least one member of the household have an advanced degree. And the third is that you live in an urban area or an area of some density, not in a rural area. And then they said, what are the and then they quizzed them on a variety of variables. the elite, and these are the people, by the way, who run our award shows. These are the people you're appealing to when you're looking for some pat on the back. There were their numbers were, it said, has the U.S. government provided too much freedom to its people, right?
To what people?
Do American citizens have too much freedom?
Okay.
They were 3 times as likely to say yes as the other 99%, right? Their numbers who said we have provided too much freedom was in the high 50s. They were 3 times as likely to say we should ban gas-powered vehicles to fight climate change. They were 50% more likely to say to support candidates who thought schools should have authority over parents in terms of educational decisions. And their approval rating, this is our elite 1%, for Joe Biden was, this is September of 2023, 84%, twice the national norm, right? And these are the people who are making the rules, who are picking the winners. And they're picking their friends or people who want to be their friends or people who aspire to be their friends. And that's the world we live in. And the only real exception to this point, and it's going to be interesting that when these two worlds collide, is sports, where you still have a meritocracy.
Unless you believe what everybody's talking about right now.
Which is?
That they're all fixed.
Well, there is that, you know.
And why would you not think so? Now that it's the great awakening, when we realize every damned institution around us is corrupt to the core.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's like you start doing a little research on your dead grandmother. I wonder if she was a narcissist, you know.
Was she a mole for the CIA?
Yeah.
Confidential human source for the FBI.
But the bottom line is people mention, nobody dismisses those things anymore. People go, the NFL's fixed.
Well, let's face it, they were fixing World Series a century ago, literally.
1919 or something.
Black Sox, right? Mm-hmm. Or
Black Sox.
The socks of color.
Socks of color, the thug socks.
No thug phobia out here.
Okay.
No, I got to stay away from that. And it's odd because these two things came up. Within the last 3 nights, I've watched 2 movies that dealt with fixing sports. One was The Great Gatsby, where his buddy is the Arnold Rothstein character. I forget his Meyer Wolfsheim in the movie. And the other was the movie The Gambler with James Caan.
Don't remember that.
It's actually a surprisingly good movie from the 70s in the 70s, by the way, it's a New York City movie, and New York City is the ultimate hellhole. You know, they made Escape from New York in the 1970s, and they barely had to improvise. But
better than now or worse?
It is. It's back.
It's the same, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I watched. I think I was telling you, I watched Charles Bronson movie.
The Rats Are Back.
What's the name of the where he becomes a vigilante, goes out shooting people. I keep forgetting the name of the movie. I
can't remember it, but I know what you're talking about.
And they made Death Wish.
Death Wish.
And it's a surprisingly good movie. We've talked about that. It's back to that, all those 70s movies. But then you had a renaissance in New York, so it's possible things get better. And now, after what they're doing to Trump, they're making sure that no developers ever want to work in New York.
Major pooch screwage on that.
Honest.
They're out of their minds, and they're going to be out of business.
Yeah, that's a shame. And meanwhile, businesses are moving to the red states.
Well, this is going to really do it.
Yeah. I mean, they're not moving to California. They're moving to Tennessee. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to Wyoming, North Dakota.
West Virginia.
Yeah.
Et cetera.
But that's well-deserved. But in sports, there is still a semblance of meritocracy, much more so than other enterprises.
Yep.
And
well, unless you go down to the kids level, they've ruined it completely.
Oh.
Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's pervasive.
Yeah.
It's completely different from what it was. Everything's T-ball like.
No, you're right. There is that, and it's. I feel sorry for these kids when I see I'll be out just for a walk and I'll see some kid's soccer game, right? practice, and there's more parents than there are kids. And there's 6-year-olds, and they make it co-ed, which is also deceptive. So they're telling these little girls that they're going to be as good as boys, and they won't be. And they're telling them, and they're sissifying the boys because they give them two sets of rules. The fathers are saying to them, "Hey, treat these girls like girls," and the coaches are saying, "Oh, get in there, hit him," you know, and they get hovered over, and they're not allowed to experience success or failure on their own.
Right.
Whereas when we sound like an old fogey here, but when we were kids, we devised our own games and made our own rules, and we didn't give out participation trophies.
No, we didn't play for trophies when I was a kid because the odds were kind of long that we'd win one.
Yeah.
So you didn't focus on that.
Yeah.
You'd like to win games.
Right.
Usually you'd win about half of them.
Yeah.
But
typically.
But there was some team that kicked ass where a couple of the kids went on to the big leagues and they won trophies or awards and all that. But what they've done is they've made it an obsessive thing now.
Right.
They're all thinking about where's my guild?
Yeah.
Where's my stuff?
Yeah.
I played.
Right.
Where's the stuff? My shelf is I got an
Empty.
empty spot on my shelf.
Right. No, because and a lot of that's for the parents. You know, they want to see those trophies. They want to see the bling of success. You know, so it reminds me. In fact, now we're getting really stretching into trophies. But when I was at camp, when I was about 9 years old, actually I did it 2 years in a row, which was like the Kansas City Chiefs is the Super Bowls. What I was the best camper awards, back to back, right?
You were the back-to-back best camper?
And you'd compete against the kids in your village. And there were 42 kids in a village.
Was it a sports camp?
No, it was a boys' club camp.
Okay.
Which, when I think back about it, there was 6 tents with 7 kids each. And they would put 2 black kids in each tent. You know, I mean, they were doing that even then, which probably made sense. I don't know. But so 2 years back to back, I won best camper. And so I come back. And my mother picks me up at the bus station. You know, that's when you kids went to school camp on buses. You know, your parents didn't take them in.
Yeah, I rode a bus to my all-Jewish sports camp.
Yeah, that's to give you would you go there to get a competitive edge? Was that
2 years. Jack Farb Sports Camp. My dad had a trade out.
I knew Jack. He was.
And I was one of 2 goyim.
Yeah. How'd you do?
Oh, I don't know. We didn't have awards.
Yeah, no.
I got to see a kid get bitten by a snapping turtle and see a kid get bitten by a copperhead.
That sounds entertaining in itself.
That's all I really remember.
You don't need rewards if you have that kind of...
I mean, that's showbiz, baby. That snapping turtle was something. It wouldn't come off of that kid's hand. They had to haul them both away.
Take him to the hospital, huge turtle hanging.
I got a turtle.
This is total digression here. It reminds me, your sadistic sense of humor here. I stumbled on a video today that I chose not to watch of a guy getting suffocated by a giant boa constrictor, right?
Uh-huh.
And there were a couple other people trying to help get it off. And then someone was obviously standing there taking a video.
Right.
Come on, put the camera down. Help. Yeah. But that didn't happen. No, so anyhow, I get back. My mother said, how was camp? I said, it was fine. How'd you do? I said, she's going through my bag. And she goes, oh, what's this? Oh, I saw I won the best camper trophy, right? Because kids they weren't into that then.
Right.
They weren't thinking those terms. And she didn't think, I didn't think 42 kids, I'm the only one, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, why weren't you holding it out the window? She literally what she said. Why weren't you holding it out the window when the bus pulled into the station? I said, I don't know. Why should I have been? You know, I mean, who am I impressing, right?
Your mom was ahead of her time.
She was. She was very competitive that way. So competitive for her children, which led me to the many trophies I've gotten since for her. Coming in third in the freshman bowling championship, you know, other major awards like that. But that is remains, I think. I think sports will remain because they cannot do to, let's say, the Kansas City Chiefs what they've done, say, the Kansas City Fire Department. They can't require the Chiefs to have women players. They can't have little fat people playing for them. They can't have the sons of the union head playing for them like they do in the Kansas City Fire Department. where half the jobs are given away to people for special reasons. Some for DEI purpose a lot, but some just for nepo baby reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where we stand now. Where do we go? I mean, do we get worse? Do we get better? Do we get more meritocratic? Does the zombie apocalypse force us to recognize merit?
Well, I think when there is a great zombie apocalypse, all those extraneous baubles will wash away.
Yeah.
And people will, meritocracy, it always emerges.
Yeah.
When it's cleansed.
Right.
And we have made a mockery of everything now. We have religions that need to be cleansed.
Yeah.
We have governments. We have sports. We have everything. I can't think of an institution that hasn't been touched by corruption.
I mean, we've always been corrupt, but there has always been more non-corruption than corruption in a lot of institutions.
What's that you talked about where everything evolves into a racket?
Oh, that was the Eric Hoffer. He said a movement starts off.
He kind of nailed that.
Yeah,
it kind of goes with everything.
He said it starts off as a movement, starts off as a cause, and becomes a business, and then degenerates into a racket. I mean, there is a racket element in sports. Some sports more than others. Pro basketball now is a kind of a nadir, let alone the WNBA.
Well, the college sports have been a huge racket for a long time.
A long time. And they're sustained by just really a stunning level of hypocrisy, right? That everyone knows they're being hypocritical. But
it's like the Olympics.
Right.
That's BS.
Yeah, yeah.
The Olympics is like the UN of sports.
Right.
It's like you can't get any seedier than that.
No, right. Or the FIFA. Yeah.
Yeah, FIFA, right.
The football. Although, the irony is that I have this discussion even within my own household about this. I'm the one sport that I do follow is basketball, and I follow Purdue basketball, which is my alma mater. And they have run the cleanest program in the country for the last 20 years. Their players, half their players are farm kids out in Indiana. They're just like Hoosiers, right? Except they're very good, and they do a good job. They coach them well. And they stick around for 4 years, and a lot of them actually go to class, graduate, right? And it's becoming increasingly difficult to do that now in an era when you can transfer, just like, let's say, oh, my team sucks, I'm going to transfer to a better school. This happens now routinely. Kansas State, for instance, last year, which did well in the final tournament, had their top 10 players had all transferred in that year.
Really?
They're all gone, right? So,
Wow.
I mean, it's become a pure mercenary enterprise. There was always a
It's
mercenary.
the opposite of what they presented it to be.
Right.
As an academic,
Scholar athlete.
a scholar athlete, amateur.
Right.
It's the furthest thing from that.
Yeah.
Of course, academic institutions are cynical as hell.
No, they are. And
They're fraudulent.
and they know it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it.
They're proud to be fraudulent.
Right. And so the games then become, and the awards then become cheapened.
Oh, yeah.
So the notion, okay, for instance, KU this year, their biggest scorer is a guy who was the high scorer last year at Michigan.
Wow.
And the Michigan program is not going anywhere, so he comes over to KU. Right?
Making me glad I don't follow college basketball.
So Purdue is trying to compete in this world, playing their old standard of historic, at least fake.
Their pedigree,
Right.
their legacy.
At least fake academic student athlete types, right? I mean, literally, 6 of their top 10 guys they're high school kids from Indiana, who they'll stay 4 years, maybe even graduate, who knows? So they're at least honoring the fraud that's historically been rampant in college basketball. The other people aren't even honoring that anymore. So the winning of the national championship, it becomes, has always been the goal. But the way to get there now has been short-circuited, has been cheapened. I try to explain this to my wife, who Purdue grad also, who believes that Purdue should go out and pulling people off to some other colleges and get exactly the players they need to win. But I said, no, you gotta win on your own terms. You got to win honestly, or at least relatively honestly. So that's the battle, and it's
well, this seems to be my role here on these discussions is to say, okay, but the biggest one of all,
the biggest fraud of all,
the biggest fraudulent award of all that is fairly recent. What comes to your mind?
The biggest fraudulent award of all, the Nobel Prize.
Awarded to whom?
Barack Obama.
Ding, 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 ding. You win the Loy Edge Award.
Is that what you had in mind?
Yes.
Oh, you should have written it down, so I feel better about getting it right. Yeah.
No, that was it.
Yeah. Well, Al Gore won one too, so,
Yeah, but Obama was the antithesis of that.
Oh, yeah. He was on the
job.
job.
He was the warmonger.
They nominated him after he'd been on the job for 7 months, right? And
he hadn't even had time to start wars yet.
No, right. He hadn't yet taken out American citizens with drones yet.
No, and bragged about it.
That was down the road, right?
Made jokes about it.
Yeah, right. No, that's a good point. I wrote a book once called Hoodwinked, and it was how intellectual hucksters have hijacked American culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I exposed all these frauds historically. People who were,
Bring a copy of that book. We'll just go through a few chapters because it's right what we're doing on the show.
It is, right. I now that I think about that, because these people had all been honored and awarded for basically fraudulent enterprises, accomplishments. One, the Nobel Prize winner that came to mind is a woman named Rigoberta Menchú.
Well, that's a hell of a great name.
Great name. She wrote a book called I, Rigoberta. She was a Guatemalan peasant woman whose father and brother were among the rebels rounded up in the middle of this town square and set on fire by the government. 30, 40 people burned right in the middle of the town square, right?
They put tires on them?
No, they just covered them with kerosene or whatever and just set them on fire.
Wow.
So this innocent archaeologist comes there a couple years later, just doing an anthropological study of the region, anthropologist. And then he starts talking about people. Where's that town square where they burned the 30 or 40 people, blah, blah, blah. People say, what? What are you talking about, right? Total fraud. The whole thing had been made up, right? She had been falling under the sway of one of Castro's people, the French guy, forget his name offhand, and adopted by the hard left. They put the narrative together, and it was all about destabilizing and, communizing Guatemala, I think it was. But they can't take the award away from her, right? Because she has it. And the New York Times, of course, leads the league in bogus Pulitzer Prizes. You don't have to go far back. In 2018, the New York Times and the
Russian deal, right?
Right. The Washington Post shared the top honors for national reporting for their work on Trump's involvement with Putin and Russia collusion.
Which they still, Hillary just recently alluded to Trump being involved with all these shady Russian deals.
Yeah.
Even though it's been disproven in court.
Right. Not only that, but it's recently shown up, and this is the work of Michael Schellenberg and Matt Taibbi, that the intelligence community assessment that was done just before Trump took office, in which they claimed that Putin had done all this hacking, favoring Trump. They said, no, it was doctored from the beginning. It was actually Hillary that Putin favored.
Of course.
And why not? She was the one who gave him the whole uranium one thing.
Of course.
So this is
Mrs. Reset button. Come on.
Exactly. And they screwed that up, if you remember.
Oh, what happened?
It was supposed to say reset, and it's like when Jimmy Carter in Poland, it said something like, kiss my ass or something. some mistransportation in Russian. But no, so this has been going on for a long time. Walter Duranty. You remember this guy? You know who he is?
I remember the name. What did he do?
He was the New York Times Soviet editor, Moscow editor, reporter in the 30s. And he almost single-handedly covered up what they call the Homidor, the the Ukrainian Holocaust that killed like 5 or 6 million people. And he was writing back, these excerpts to send them to the New York Times saying everything's great here in the Soviet Union, everything doing good.
That's like Snow.
Yeah. As Edgar Snow.
From here.
Right.
Kansas City guy.
Yeah, who was the
China correspondent.
Right.
Life magazine.
They made up wars. They made up battles.
Yeah.
They didn't just make up outcomes. They made up whole battles. And then they get awards. They have a museum, a shrine to Edgar Snow here at Kansas City, Boy, we could go on for a couple hours just talking about frauds here,
Absolutely.
But all good things must come.
I'm sure they all have good awards.
I bet you they have trophy cases filled with awards, right?
Yeah.
But the New York Times hasn't given the Pulitzer back for Durante, right? Even though movies now have been made about, there's a movie, I think it's called Mr. Jones, it may be called, about a British reporter who actually investigated what was going on in Ukraine then.
Well, where we see it playing out, where it's leaked over into more of a political sphere,
Yeah.
court awards.
Yeah.
Even though that's not politics specifically, it's in that realm because it can be like what's going on with Trump.
Yeah, right.
This my late friend Billy Bigger wrote a book about that, about the court awards called They Sued for Millions.
Uh-huh.
And it was all of these outrageous awards.
Yeah.
Page after page. I mean, this was like a 300-page book.
Right.
And that culture started cheapening and
the whole Aaron Brockovich scenario,
And that's really a parallel. I mean, it's close.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's many ways that they've cheapened the value of merit. I mean, or they've pulled the merit out of so many different enterprises that it's kind of distressing. Although I hope that we can reverse this, but that's not going to be easy.
No, first you got to get the criminality out of government.
And then I've got to give my 2 best camper awards back to Camp Brady because
you cheated.
I cheated. I was nice for 2 weeks, How unlike my real self.
You talk about merit and how they put 2 token members of one race in each tent.
Right.
To make sure that people were exposed and all that. Well, you can make a case for that with young people and say, it doesn't hurt anybody. Let's have a little cultural diversity just in case it's helpful. But, in prisons, they take a little different tack.
And what is that?
They strictly divide them among black, Hispanic, and white.
Right. They have to.
Just strictly.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that just shows you that's more of a merit thing because you get a shiv in the ribs.
Right. No, right. There's always some do-gooder coming in saying, you can't do that. You can't. And they say, you come down and run this prison otherwise.
Yeah, that's it.
See what happens. No, it's
So there are cases when people just defer to that tribalism. Yeah. And that's what they want.
Right.
And maybe not all of them.
Right.
But if you cross it, there can be some bad repercussions.
Well, if anyone wants to see, and I'll close with this, I went to see this movie last week because it was the book for our book club, so I thought I'd go see the movie. And it's called Boys in the Boat. It's directed by George Clooney. It's about the 1936 crew at the University of Washington that ends up winning the gold in Berlin. Not to be a spoiler, but let's face it, they wouldn't have made the movie Boys in the Boat if they came in 6th in Berlin, But it is a testament to the pure meritocracy when that was possible. It's also the whitest movie Hollywood's ever made, and which is nominated for no Academy Awards. It should have been, But even though George Clooney's the director and it did well at the box office and got good, critical reviews.
Whiter than that bicycle racing movie that came out about 25 years
That's right,
ago.
Breaking Away, right?
Yeah.
Or Chariots of Fire.
Chariots of Fire, that's the one I was thinking
movies
of.
that celebrate competition. Hoosiers, perhaps arguably the best sports movie ever made. But anyhow, so look for that. The purity is obviously is vanishing, but it doesn't have to vanish. I think people were capable of recreating it, as you suggest, looking at every institution and then thinking it back to where it should be and where it ought to be. So I remain hopeful, Pollyanna that I am. And we will see you, I guess, next week, Loy.
Why not?
Here, literally here at Real Media in Overland Park.
That's right.
Brad Barrow, great guy, great people. Carly,
Love him.
Our wonderful producer.
And don't forget to spread the word about this podcast if you think it's worth a damn.
That's right. It's called Upstream with Cash on Edge.